One thing one of my friends told me one time was changing the oil on your car or your truck is kind of like brushing your teeth. It's easy to do and you just do it. It's kind of like a habit. Okay, I have my 2005 Toyota Prius Generation 2. I'm going to do an oil change on it and I'm going to give you an explanation how to do it. First off, you have to open the hood, and to do that you have to open the car door. And there is a lever right here. It's fairly obvious because it has a hood little deal. Just pull out. You can hear it open. Then you can close your door. Go around the front. And you'll lift it up a little bit. It comes up. And right, you can see this little gap here. Right here, you stick your hand. There's a little lever, you can feel it, lift it up, and then the whole roof, the whole hood comes up. Then there's this rod here that supports it, which will come down and go right into that little slot there. And now the hood is open. For the oil change, you're going to need these items here. You're going to need, obviously, your oil. For the 2005 Toyota Prius, it uses a 5W30 engine oil, and you can verify that within the owner's manual. Also, is if you look on the engine cap should say on there what the engine oil is. 5W30. How about that? Then you're going to have your oil filter. I also went with the Mobile. Not that I'm advertising for Mobile, it's just what I use. You could probably use any brand. You can mix your brands of oil with your oil filters. It doesn't really matter. I just have this one for no particular reason. This says up to 15,000 miles of guaranteed protection. I just change my oil filter every other oil change. That's pretty much how I do it. You're going to need your oil pan, you're going to need your oil filter, you're not going to need your phone. Move that. I guess you can need your phone if you're watching the YouTubes. Then you need your phone. Need your wrench. I have, for this is a 14 millimeter. You can use a box wrench, you can use other types of wrench, and a shop rag of some kind. This is for the oil filter. You may or may not need it depending on how tight your oil filter is when you take it off. Alright, let's get to it. You're going to take your oil pan, slide it underneath your car. The car is pretty low to the ground, but I can reach my arm under here, and to show you the bolt that we're going to be loosening, it's that bolt right there. That's right on the oil pan. It is closer to the passenger side of the car. The oil filter is right there. You can just reach up, it's a nice round cylindrical object. So you're gonna move your oil pan pretty much right underneath your oil drain plug. If this is your first time, you're afraid of getting the ground all messy, you can put some cardboard down and that could catch all the spillage of oil that you're going to have. But we will see, shouldn't be too messy. Okay, so you have your oil drain pan in place. You're going to want to loosen it. So you have to remember lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So looking at your bolt, righty-tighty would be clockwise, lefty-loosey would be counterclockwise. That always happens. Loosens it up. Now it is hand tight. This is probably the messiest part for me because I'm going to get a little bit of oil on my hand. I'm just loosening it up by hand because now it's not very tight. I'm putting pressure on the bolt so that it kind of holds the oil in, so that it doesn't just gush all over my hand. Because as soon as it's unthreaded, you hear a click, and that's when I'm going to pull it away really fast so it doesn't get all over me. And the oil is now draining into the drain pan, nice and black. And now you want to clean off your bolt a little bit so that it's nice and clean. They'll have a washer on there, you want to keep that and make sure you don't lose it. And then you just let it drain. I typically change my oil every 5,000 miles. And then change the oil filter every other time, so every 10,000 miles. You can change the oil filter every time if that's what you desire. Okay, now that it's pretty much done draining, you want to replace the drain plug. It's already cleaned up. You just reach it up there, find the hole, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, remember. Obviously, it would only go in at this point if it's righty-tighty. Get it pretty hand tight. Take your rag, just kind of clean it up a little bit. And then you can move your oil pan out of the way a little bit. Switch your wrench to tighten. And now tighten her up. Put the caterpillar in there. You don't need to really crank on this, just get it kind of snug. And that's all there is to that, and that's good to go. Now, probably the messiest part is the oil filter. You're gonna have oil probably dripping all over the place with this one. When I put the oil filters on, I only hand tighten them. But a lot of times, like now, yeah, it's pretty tight. Somehow it just gets that way. Yep, that's tight. That's when I use this guy now. Let's move the oil pan a little bit farther out of the way. Yeah. So you stick this loop around the deal. Oh, it's on backwards. Stick the loop around the deal, and the deal is another word for oil filter. There's not much room for this, so you gotta pick your battles. And there you go. I think that was just enough. Now you see? Oh yeah. Alright, so now it's slowly loosening up. This is when you want to move that oil filter, oil pan, back here. Yep, now it's way loose. Oil's gonna be start dripping place. Oh yeah, oh yeah. See how it's dripping? It's not loosened yet. Can't do anything about that. And it's still not loose, just gotta keep going. Yep, now it's released. Kind of tip it upside down. Let it drain a little bit. Some oil pans are nicer than others, and you can just set this on top without submerging it into the oil, and it'll drain right into the oil pan with the rest of the oil. I have a cheap oil pan, probably like $2 at Walmart or any auto store, and then tip it back over so if there's any left in there, it'll stay in there. Okay, so I have the oil filter, and there's a rubber gasket on oil filters, and I added a little bit of clean, fresh oil and just rubbed it around the gasket on there before I reapply. So you just put the new oil filter up there, follow the old righty-tighty, lefty-loosey technique. Works pretty well. Turn it on. And look at that. You just want to do these like hand tight. Otherwise you'll never get them off. If yours is really cranked on there, you can't get a... Oh, I just dripped my rag right into oil. That's awesome. Yeah. You can't get a little, what do we call those things? I don't even know what to call them, like can opener type deals on there. There's no room to work. A crude, really messy way to do it is if you have a flathead screwdriver or whatnot, you can basically hammer it in to the oil filter itself, down lower, so you don't mess with the actual car. So you want to do it down lower, you want to kind of hammer it inside, and you want to get it into the core, and then you use the screwdriver to leverage it around. It's really messy, and I've only had to do that a couple times where on certain vehicles it's just, that thing was just incredibly tight. No way to not do that. Anyways, this is all done down here. Got the drain plug back in, you got the oil filter back in, you got everything cleaned up. So now you can remove your drain pan out of the way. Now is where these last pieces come in. I have my funnel, my rag, and my oil. I have 2 cans of oil because when I do change the oil, this car only uses 3.9 quarts, so pretty much 4. Obviously each one of these is 5 quarts. So I have 1 quart left over each time, and this is my oil from the previous time. You can see the oil left over, and then there's this. So I'll use this oil and then fill the remaining up with this, and then I'll have like 3 quarts left over. And it's kind of like your own membership rewards program. With every 4 oil changes, you get 1 oil change free. It's pretty awesome. Alright, so we're gonna go up here. You go right to the top of the engine where you add the engine oil. You know this because the cap says engine oil, and it also again says what type of oil. And you can add your oil filter right into it, just like that. Now is where you add your oil. I'm almost at 4 quarts. Okay, I've added about 4 quarts. You're gonna remove your filter. You're gonna have your rag to, again, catch any oil because there's still oil in this. Put your cap back on, and then start the engine and run for maybe a couple minutes. You're gonna want to put the oil back in the filter because right now there's no oil in the filter, so that when you take the measurement of how much oil you have with the dipstick, it's actually accurate. Okay, I ran the car for about a minute. To get the engine to actually start, when you push the power button and it doesn't come on, or even if you put it into drive and it doesn't come on, what you can do is put it into drive or reverse, step on the brake, and very lightly apply the gas so that you're not moving. Your brake is holding the car still. You apply the gas to get the engine to run. Your dipstick, which is, if that's where you add the oil, right towards the front of the car. There's a little, at least mine is yellow, dipstick. You pull it out and then you measure the oil. Alright, what you want to do is pull the dipstick out and use your rag to clean it off once. And now you have it all clean. You're going to get a nice reading. Insert it back into its slot. Sometimes it's a little rough. Fully insert it and then remove it again. And then you can look at it. Might be hard to see, but you can see right there, right where the light reflects off the oil. So you can see I added a very slightly too much oil, but that'll probably be fine. And I'll just keep that. If it was like way up here, then yeah, you'd want to drain some out. This is now I have an empty container and all this used oil. You don't want to dump this in the ground. Just put this oil into this container, and then you want to properly dispose of the oil. Pretty much every single auto parts store that I've ever been to will accept your used oil. If they don't, and it's like a weird situation, the city will typically also have a hazardous waste disposal location that you can give them your hazardous waste. Alright, the last portion of your oil change is going to be resetting the check engine light that tells you when you should change your oil. So you're going to want to push your button here twice without pushing the brake. You see your lights come on. You're going to make sure that your odometer here, your trip odometer, is on ODO and not trip A or trip B. You want it on ODO. Push your button again, turn the car off. Now, with it in ODO, you're going to push your trip button here at the same time as you push the power button, at the same time as your foot pushes the brake to turn your car on. So I'm going to put the camera down and I'm going to do all three of those things so you can see the lights up here. Hold the ODO trip button, push the brake, and then holding those two things, push the power button on. You see those lights flash, 3, 2, 1, and it's off. Then you let go, and as you notice, your trip has now reset.